Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I am here with Jeremy, and we have some really cool information we're going to be covering, which is how to get into co hosting. We both get this question a lot, and we thought instead of answering one on one, why not create a video and tell you some insights and tips if you're interested in getting into it? So, before we get any further, Jeremy, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you cutting out the time to join us. Please
Yeah,
tell everyone who you are and let us know how you got into co-hosting yourself.
sure. Yeah. So my name's Jeremy Rosen. I live here in San Antonio, Texas. I'm with Five Star Vacation Home Rentals. I'm the partner over just the San Antonio region. But we're basically in San Antonio and Austin and surrounding communities with about 65 total listings right now, projected to do about 8 million in gross revenue this year. So we're busy, but not too busy to carve out some time to provide value because, at the end, we always like to say that, rising tide raises all ships, right? So we're here to provide
Mhm.
value, give people, the information that they need to do what we do and hopefully become competitors of ours because, we want people to improve the city and improve the STR community here and do well. So happy to do that. I've been in management, co-hosting for about 5 years now. Built my own portfolio up to about 20 properties, and then merged with Five Star Vacation Home Rentals just the beginning of this year. But overlooking just the San Antonio market and growing. Very happy to be
Yes.
here, though. What
Awesome.
about you?
Awesome. Yes. Well, my story isn't quite that glamorous, but it is nice. I do have a company, Hosted Havens, and we are full service co-host here in San Antonio. We have a little over 30 listings right now. And how I got into it, I started very small time with just my own property. I rented my own house because at the time I was traveling a lot with my job at the time. And so when I was out of town, I would rent my house. That was going really well. So maybe about 6 months later, I got a rental arbitrage deal. And so I had two properties and did that for maybe about a year. Learned a lot, created a lot of processes. And then I started helping other people. People had questions, they wanted little tips. And so that's kind of how I started getting into co hosting, managing other people's places, turned into a real full business. And like I said, we're over 30 properties at this time. So, um,
Awesome.
trying to think any other like really key points, but that's how I got into it.
Yeah,
Started
I
with a
think
personal
actually,
need and then grew.
yeah, one important thing also for the future co-hosts out there is that you don't need to do this full time necessarily because up until this merger at the beginning of the year, I still had a full-time job. So we'll get into
Mm-hmm.
how I was able to make this happen even while still being a full-time nurse in a busy ICU. But also,
Yes.
for the people listening, kudos to both of us because we are the top two short-term rental property managers in San Antonio as by AirDNA. So if you're not familiar with AirDNA, they're the main data aggregator for short-term rentals worldwide. So we're the top two as far as quality and properties and everything. So kudos to you.
I don't think I knew that. So thank
Oh,
you for
well,
the
hey, I
info.
thought I told you. Well, there you go. Yeah, there you go. We're the top.
Awesome. Okay. Okay. Well, before we get into it, because I know we're talking co hosting, and there might be a few different ideas out there of exactly what that means. The term co host is a very generic term. I mean, it could mean something as small as you hire one person to message with your guests, and they might even be someone who lives overseas in the Philippines or in another country, and they would be considered a co host. Then you have on the other end of the spectrum people who are full service co hosts, essentially property managers, or maybe one step below a property manager if you're in a state that needs certain types of licenses. So tell me, Jeremy, what do you think people misunderstand about what a co host actually does?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, from my perspective with our owners, they are looking to be completely passive. So what people generally misunderstand about what co-hosts do is they think that it's just about the high level things, you know, messaging
Mm-hmm.
guests, coordinating cleaners, things like that. my model and I believe your model are similar in that we're pretty much everything A to Z. I like to
Hmm.
kind of say to my owners that things are going well if you only hear me one of two times a month. One of
Yes.
them, obviously, when everything's great and we tell you how much money you made. The other
Hmm.
time is if something major is going wrong, that we need to let you know about a water heater that broke or something. But, they're looking for passivity, and that's what we provide, both of us, to so that they can own this asset, make money off this asset, but have nothing to do with how they got that money. So that's
Hmm.
really what it is. You're going to be managing everything A to Z if that's going to be your model. Because there are, just like different types of co-hosts, there's different types of business models. There's companies that will only do the guest messaging, and then the owner does pricing, things like that. But really, you have to think of it that you are the owner of a small hospitality business, whether it's your full-time job or not, and your job is to make life easy for your owners. You're paid to make the judgment calls. You're paid to deal with the angry guests and the perfect guests. Because in the end, owners don't hire us to save them time. They hire us to reduce their stress and the
Yeah.
risk of managing their business.
Absolutely, 100% agree. And like you said, there are a wide range. So if you're listening and you're like, okay, I really just kind of want to do one or two tasks, you'll still get some value from the conversation that we're having here today. But we will be focusing a little bit more on the co-hosts that are more involved, right?
Hmm.
So you mentioned very similar to us, my company, we're full service co-hosts. We handle all of the day-to-day operations. So very similar. Our homeowners are not involved. They get their time back, they get their sanity back, they give us their
Yes.
property. And like you said, we maybe contact them a couple times a month to not let them know how the property is performing or if there's a bigger issue that we need to connect with them on. So just want to make sure that's clear with everyone. We're kind of focusing on the bigger co-hosts roles. But even if you want to do maybe boots on the ground, I only coordinate the cleaning or I only coordinate maintenance, you can still get some value from the conversation we're having today.
Right, right.
Okay.
And Airbnb has listed co-hosts on the listings, of course, and that's why people generally think of that as a
Mm-hmm.
co-host. And I think that's more your model where you're listed as a co-host. The difference in our model is that we prefer to actually own the listing, and not
Yes.
have co-hosts attached to it, just for a few logistical reasons. But it works well for us, and no one's ever fired us. We're doing a great job for our owners. So, they're happy to go along with it, and it works out well.
Yes, yes, that is a really important point. So, when you look at a listing and you go to the host section, you might see one, you might see five or six. I'm like amazed when I see that many co-hosts
Right.
on one listing. And so, yes, in your case, you were the one who created that listing, you own that listing. For us, we do it slightly different. We have the owner create a preliminary listing, give us full access, and then we manage that listing for them. So yeah,
Right.
we hope to never part ways, but if we do, they get to keep their listing and their
Right.
reviews. Yeah.
Yeah. There's no right way. There's no one way. Yeah.
Yes, very, very true. If you talk to 10 different people, you'll get 10 different ways of doing it.
Yes.
So speaking of that, we know it definitely takes some skill. It's not just a matter of a free for all. There's some skills that do matter a little bit more than people expect. So I would like to hear from you. What are those skills that you do think matter a little bit more? Or maybe even the opposite of that. What are some skills that matter a little less than what people think?
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, you still obviously have to have great customer service. At the end of the day, your role is to steward your owner's listing, to make it perform as best as possible. So you have to have some level of customer service and hospitality. Me coming from the nursing world, that kind of works well for this because I'm
Mm-hmm.
dealing with my patients who are my guests, quote unquote, and their family members, and wanting to give them, the best experience in some of their hardest days of their lives. That translates really well to being a property manager and a co-host now, where I'm doing it full time, of course. But when you're talking to an angry guest or there's an issue, whether it's a big issue or not, you want to have that, 5-star mentality that we're going to fix it no matter what, A plus effort kind of a thing, which is one of our values, A plus effort. But you need to have the calm decision making ability because not everything's going to go right. You're going to have,
Mhm.
especially when you get up to scale, you're going to have multiple issues coming at you at the same time. So I think being calm under pressure, being able to prioritize things, um, eventually being able to delegate. There's a great book called Who Not How, which is really it really goes in depth about when's it time and who can fix a problem for you versus you always being the one. Because eventually,
Mhm.
when you get to our size, you're not going to, you're going to be the bottleneck and nothing's going to get done. So, clear communication that, guests know that they're going to have a great stay. The owners know that everything's going well, as well, and I think that's really it as far as what matters more than just the
Mhm.
normal, managing a listing kind of stuff. What matters less is, the things that will suck your sanity. You don't need to be on call 24 hours a day. You don't have to have a fancy website to get started. You don't have to have all the, shiny objects in your arsenal because that's one way to not make any money, but also, focusing on trying to please everyone that matters less too because you're not going to be able to please everybody. And sometimes you aren't obligated to please certain guests. It's just sometimes they're wrong, but you have to do it in the right way, of course, because in the end of the day, you're stewarding the listing and the reviews. So I think those are some of the most important things that matter more and matter less. I don't know. Did I miss anything? What do you think?
No, I don't think you missed anything. I just want to reiterate some that resonate with me, which is the hospitality, right? You have to have good customer service skill. If you're considered a hothead, if you get pulled into arguments very easily, you might want to reassess because there's a lot of opportunity to get pulled into it, and you got to be able to say no. So,
Calm under
yes,
pressure. Yes.
yes, coming from customer service background, and I was an operational trainer when I had a second full-time job as well. Dealing with that was that skill is super important when you bring it to co-hosting. Not just dealing with the guests, but the owners. Sometimes you have owners who up front they agree to one arrangement, but then when you're in the weeds, they're wanting you to do a lot more than what you actually signed on to do. And so being able to navigate that in a professional and kind way is very important. And then the
Yeah.
flip side, very much agree with what you said of this shiny object syndrome. It is very easy for every tool and every coach and everything to sound amazing and you want to buy that and subscribe to that and own this, and it just pulls you too thin. You need to work
Hmm.
on your core needs and how do you deliver a great experience to the guests and optimize the property performance and revenue for the owner. Let that be the focus and kind of put everything else to the background. So I completely agree with what you said.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So thinking about some of those types of things and your history and everything. So what do you wish that someone had warned you about before you started, co-hosting and before you started your business?
Oh boy. A lot. A lot. We touched on it, but when you're starting out, you do kind of get bottlenecked in a few different things. And so I wish if I could go back and someone could explain to me what were going to be the biggest pain points and what was going to take the most time to navigate and find a way through so that I didn't have to do it in real time. For me, I would say it was maintenance. And even to today, even though we have a good handle on it, it is still something that's always in the background of improving. If you have even one property, but especially as you're starting to scale, there are always maintenance items happening, and you need to have a reliable, uh, fast, trustworthy, cost efficient team who can go out and handle those items. So that's a real biggie for me, something that I wish I had known or someone had told me before I had started. And then I would say probably on the opposite end to really revel in the wins, right? Sometimes I'll speak for myself. I'm always next go, next go, next go, and I have to force myself to like stop and appreciate what I have accomplished. And I'm gonna give you a very short story. I was
Yeah.
looking through some old notes, and I found like a list of stuff that I wanted to do in my business. And as I was reading it, I'm like, wow, I actually have done everything on this list. And it blew my mind because I was so focused on the next problem or the next goal that I hadn't accomplished. I hadn't taken the time to realize what I had accomplished, not just for myself and my team, but my homeowners. So I would say those two things. Know that you need to focus on maintenance because you don't want to get caught red handed. And also appreciate the wins because it is a lot of work to really get started and to optimize. How about you?
Yes.
What are
I
some of
mean,
yours?
a lot of what you said, because the umbrella for that is that you're always going to deal with problems that you never anticipated. I remember some days I'll look at my calendar and be like, oh, it's going to be a light day. No, that's the
Mhm.
wrong thing to say, because next thing you know, you've got, this issue popping up, this issue popping up, and something's wrong on the listing, or whatever. And so, yeah, you're gonna things are going to pop up that you don't expect that need almost immediate response. But from the actual co-hosting side, what do you need to actually be a co-host? You need owners. Not every owner is going to be a fit, even if they have a nice property. So I think people first should get really crystal clear about who they want to serve, what kind of
Mhm.
client, you know, much kind of like you, I started with an arbitrage as well. So I was my own client at first to kind of learn how to do it, and make sure that I was actually capable of doing it at a high level. And that went very well for the 3 years I had it. But beyond myself, I had to get real clear that not every owner is a fit for me. Especially when you get up to scale, you have a little bit more flexibility to say no to certain, homes and owners. But, early on, maybe I said yes to properties that really didn't bring me much of anything, more stress, less money, kind of a thing.
Mhm.
So, getting real crystal clear on that, who you want to serve, what kind of properties you want to go after, and spend your time focusing on that. Because much like your guest avatar, if your property appeals to everybody, you're not going to be successful. You really need to niche down and focus on,
Mhm.
what it is. But one property leads to two properties, leads to four properties. So before you know, if you don't have the right systems set up, you're talking about, handyman, you're talking about, things like that, so that you and eventually a team that you build can know the playbook. If you don't have those systems, the standard operating procedures, SOPs, you're always going to be the bottleneck, and you're never going to elevate out of just the day warrior kind of role, and never going to elevate into a manager, CEO, owner,
Mhm.
kind of a role, because everything's going to have to go through you. Every question's going to have to be answered by you. So really, really putting down on paper, or digital, of course, what you do. If you do it more than once, document it so that you can hand that to somebody else to do it for you next time. I'm sure you can quickly think of a handful of things that you don't do anymore because you were able to hand it off easily. And that's really one of the wins as well, is so that you can then focus still on the clients that you're serving, and not on just the random minutia that kind of pops up during the day. So yeah, at the end, we're here serving our owners. Um, I think those are the main things I can think of when I'm thinking about, what I knew, what I wish I knew at the beginning. But, it's not going to be as easy as some people on YouTube make it seem. So
Right.
you might not get your first deal for 6, 9 months, a year, but if you really want it, you're going to get it.
Mhm.
And that's what we're here to do, is to help you figure out how to get there faster. So, yeah.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. And I think I think the honesty is really important because there are some people out there who make it seem like it's so easy. You can make, 1 million in one
Yeah.
quarter. And it's like,
Real
who is
estate.
believing this?
So easy. Yeah.
So I think it's important that we talk about not just, the glamour part of it, but what we wish we knew. And maybe even this question, which might be another difficult one, but like at what point should someone try maybe not to be a co-host, or at least not to go at it alone? What are some signs or some situations that you're like, yeah, this may not be the perfect fit right now?
Yeah. Again, it was just me managing my portfolio of close to 20. But by the time I got to maybe 5 listings, that's kind of
Mm-hmm.
when things started to get uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
You've got guest issues popping up and I'm at the hospital or something's happening and I can't physically be there. That's when you have to take notice that this is an opportunity for you to grow, not just the business, but grow as the owner of the company and figure out like who, not how, who can help me with this situation because it's not feasible for me to not be a nurse right now because I'm not making enough money to replace my income, but I also at the same time need to be able to manage my properties, need people to see my property. So, you know, if you have a spouse that wants to help in the business, great. I love when people go at it in, a marriage or a relationship or some other kind of partnership because they're both focusing on their goals as a unit. Um, but in my case, my wife wanted to do her own thing and I wanted to do this, and that's cool. So um, I quickly realized that I needed to find more like a boots on the ground person locally. So um, on a broader scope, like if you're managing your portfolio and you're, always getting pinged at night, losing sleep, having to look at your phone all the time when you should be playing with your child or,
Mm-hmm.
missing social events, like that's a sign that the job is running you and not the other way around. And you need to find the help so that you can keep your sanity because we don't want you to burn out. We want you to be successful and grow. So, it also comes a point where you will feel like you're not finishing a single task because as soon as you start
Mm-hmm.
working on something, something else pops up that you think
Interruption.
like the sky's falling. So, as soon as things like that happen, like, or you're onboarding new owners, yay, that's a win, but you're still handling all the other issues. So you can't get up and running as fast. So those are the kind of things. Anytime you're like, I wish I had a second me, yeah, go get a second you. Find somebody that you can
Mm-hmm.
train to be the local person, boots on the ground, who's on the homes. There was a time when I think I got to 10 or 12 listings where I don't think I'd seen step foot into any of those other properties after that. Like my local person knew those properties so perfectly that I could focus on being the higher level, CEO
Mm-hmm.
type person and manage the other team members. So it definitely comes a time quickly in your growth where you're going to get very uncomfortable and need that other person. So don't shy away from it because you want to keep all the money to yourself. You won't grow that way. Sometimes you got to spend a little money in order to grow the business to the next level. What
Very
about you?
true. Very.
Anything?
Yeah, yeah, all of that is very true. Like they say, are you working in your business or are you working on your business? And of
Good.
course, in the beginning, you're working in it, right? You are the person wearing all the different hats and doing all the different things. But if you get to the point that you can't sleep through the night because something needs you, there's a guest, there's an owner, there's an issue, or you're scaling and like you said, you feel like you can't get anything complete because you're constantly being interrupted to do something else, it's time to grow that team out. And yeah, maybe that's when you get a co-host that does just one
There you go.
one thing. They only do guest services, and so you hire them as your co-host. But I would also say really look into yourself and see what your motivation is, right? Because going back to the skill question, if you let's say you again, I always use this example, if you get roped into disagreements or arguments easily, that's going to be very difficult to be a co-host. I mean, you will either need to unlearn that or you need to hire someone who is the one who deals with your guests. So kind of think of what is your motivation. If you're only thinking about, oh, I'm going to make a lot of money, but you're not thinking about what it takes to handle housekeeping, someone
Hmm.
calling out, and then you got to find a replacement. You're not really thinking about the day to day details of running a business. Then maybe this is not the right time or the right field for you, or maybe you want to gather a team and have different people do different things before you get started. So kind of a little bit of both your systems, your processes, your motivation. It can get hard at times, especially in the beginning. And so, if you can drill down to your why is this feel in particular so appealing to you? And you can go back to that why. Sometimes that can help you push through the harder days or the harder situations. And again, focus on when you have those wins to let that push you through as well. So a little bit of that I would think as well to consider and be like, okay, I'm on the fence. Should I do it or should I not do it?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Very good.
Let's talk about some systems because we're
Okay.
kind of talking about um, maybe the dark side of co-hosting, maybe when you don't want to do it or things we wish we should. We wish we had known. I'm getting a little tongue tied here, but let's talk about some systems if you're going to go forth and prosper. So, I don't know about you, but I could not do this without my systems, and I do not have shiny syndrome where I'm getting everything. But there are some core systems and processes that make the biggest impact for me. So I'm gonna ask you first.
Okay.
What systems or processes have made the biggest difference once things really started getting busy for you?
Yeah, I think starting off with some core systems from the beginning will help you set up for success. There was time when I think I got to maybe 4 or 5 listings where I went from 4 to 8 very quickly, with one
Mm-hmm.
person. And it took a very long time to go back and recreate all the systems I wish I had from the beginning. But one of the things that will really make your job easier is a property management software, a PMS. There's so many different ones out there. If you ask us which one's right for you, you're probably going to get a bunch of different answers from different people. I'll tell you, I started with Hospitable. I was able to scale my portfolio with Hospitable. It was great. It's relatively inexpensive. Um, they're a great team. I have nothing bad to say about them. With the merger, now we're with OwnerRez. And so now I'm
Mm-hmm.
learning that whole system all over again, a whole new system, and really getting the nitty gritty, knowledge on that one because it's a much more robust system that I don't think most people need until they get to a larger portfolio like ours.
Right.
Um, but of course, you need to have the knowledge, which could be like a system of the important things like pricing, guest communication, automations like that. But again, tracking the things that you do frequently in, either Google Drive or Notion is becoming very popular. Getting it out of your brain and onto a document so that when you do get to a point where you're scaling, all these systems are already in place. Um, I think a lot of times when people get to maybe 4 or 5 listings, that's when it comes time to start hiring, whether it just be a virtual team member to do guest messaging. They can be either listed as a co-host or they can just have access to your account or the PMS. You can give them access with the PMS. Um, but in the end, systems and processes are what's going to make or break you as a business. And we
Mm-hmm.
definitely don't want you breaking yourself because that is when it's not fun anymore and no one's happy. And guests start recognizing it and not having a great stay. Your review scores go down, and suddenly your business is not doing what you set out to do. So, again, you don't need a lot of things, but I think a PMS and a good pricing software like Price Labs are really kind of the core things, and then a way to get knowledge out of your brain into a SOP volume or vault, so that you can hand that off to somebody else in the future. What did I miss there? I'm sure there's plenty of things you have.
I do. I have a whole catalog of items, but everything you said, I agree with. So to kind of break it down a little bit, if you are just getting into co-hosting and maybe you just have that one property or a couple properties, you probably can get away with just Airbnb for a little bit. But we
Yeah.
know the more exposure, the better, right? You're going to want to be on Verbal and booking and maybe, eventually have your own direct booking website. So that's where that PMS is really important because it takes all those different places and bring it into one location where it can be managed. Having a software that you're using to manage your housekeeping and your maintenance. Hopefully, you're getting to a point where you're doing inspections on a regular basis, or maybe you do restocking. Again, each co-host is a little bit different, but if those are things you're
Hmm.
going to offer, you're going to need to be able to track them, schedule them, know when they're being completed, pay the people who are doing them. So having that software is really important too. Um, let's see, I would say when you get to the point where you are starting to scale, so like you said about that 5+ properties, you might want to start your direct booking strategies. So having a website. And with that, you want to market, right? You want to bring people to that site, not necessarily ads per se, but even just keeping in contact with your previous guests can be a way to help you get direct bookings. So having a CRM, what does it stand for? Customer management system or
Yeah.
software. Having a
Yeah.
CRM where you maybe are collecting emails or phone numbers, and then you can communicate with your past guests, maybe offer them a discount or some type of incentive to book on your direct booking website. So I would say those are probably three top of the line for me. I'll just tell you for me, I still use Hospitable. So Hospitable is my PMS. I use Breezeway for
Hmm.
my scheduling of everything. I use Mailchimp for my CRM. So there are a lot of systems out there. By no means am I saying mine are the best. They're just the ones that I use. And then let's see processes. So going back to the SOPs that even Jeremy talked about earlier, if you're doing anything on a regular basis, you need to document it because when you scale and you get to a point that you can't manage it anymore on your own and you need to hire someone, it actually becomes more work if you have to teach them how to do it because there's no
Yes.
documentation. So now you got
Right.
two things. You're hiring someone, but then you're also documenting at the same time. And in the middle of that, also trying to manage the business that has grown to the point that you are already maxing out. So do it now before it is a need. Document what you do. I go to this software, I click here, I type this. What is urgent? What is not urgent? I know it sounds like a lot, and this is not meant to scare you because here's the beautiful thing: when you start small, you can build all of this as you scale. And so unless you get a really amazing opportunity to bring on 10 houses at one time, you typically are growing at a slower rate where you can implement this as you need it. So you might start with just Airbnb, then bring on a PMS, then bring on, it grows with you as you bring on more properties. So we're talking from one end where we have, dozens of listings. That may be too much for someone who's starting at day one, but just something to kind of think about for the future.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think as you grow, your business is gonna accumulate different systems. Like you mentioned, we're using Breezeway as well. Our CRM is with Go High Level,
Mm-hmm.
and we're obviously on multi-channel. OwnerRez puts you on absolutely everything, but
Mm-hmm.
starting with Airbnb, getting crystal clear about how to use every nuance about it. Uh, Tip, something I always would forget is to always make sure you add in a cleaning fee because it's in a different place.
Yes.
It's in the calendar. It's in the calendar. Don't forget that. Little hot tip for you. I've maybe done that a
Yes.
few times and had to pay the cleaner myself, but
Right. Like, why are
little
these
tip
bookings
there.
coming in so fast?
Yeah. See, we're not perfect, anyone that claims they're perfect, they're blowing smoke, but
Yes.
we can only do our best, but having the right systems make it easier. So, yeah, you're
Mm-hmm.
absolutely right. Absolutely right.
That's funny. That made me think back to a property we had. This is a while back, but yeah, we went live and like the bookings are coming in. We're like, this is unusually like either price is too low and it was like, oh,
Right.
there's no cleaning fee.
Oh, dang.
Okay.
Every time. I hate that.
Yes, yes. Well, like you said, we have learned from failing forward. That's what I say. Sometimes you fail forward, you get up, you brush yourself off,
Right.
you learn and you live. And so hopefully you can take some of these tips and not make the same mistakes as us, but you will make mistakes and that's okay.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes.
I know our time is getting a little short. I do have one more question that I think is really important, especially if we have those newbies here. So if there's someone who is listening who, even through all of this, they are serious and like, I want to become a co-host. What's that one thing that you would say they should do before taking on their first property?
Yeah. I mean, really, of course, it's going to be knowing how to do this. I spent a lot of time listening to podcasts, books,
Mm-hmm.
working with a mentor who now became my partner. Um, and there's a whole bunch of different ways to learn. I highly recommend the Short Term Rental Secrets podcast. Start from the beginning. Daniel Rustine has a couple of great books that teach you the ins and outs. Avery Carl has a great book published through Bigger Pockets that teaches you about short-term rentals and hosting. But in the end, if you're not confident explaining what you will do for an owner, you're not ready yet. So you really need to understand what it is you're doing. But at the same time, those first handful of phone calls with potential clients are going to teach you a lot too of what you still need to learn so that you can operate at a high level. I think those are, some of the most important things. But again, treating it like a business before you treat it like just a side hustle. Deciding again, crystal clear about who you want to serve, what kind of properties you want to go after, what you're going to accept, what you're not going to accept, so that you can really scale the way you want to. Um, of course, again, building the basic systems before you need them. Um, and then again, it's just in the end going to come down to having the customer service experience, not necessarily experience, but having the customer service ability to answer, guest complaints, guest questions, and quickly get them their responses as well, and putting yourself in the guest's shoes so that how what they might be expecting. Um, but yeah, those are kind of the main things. First, you just have to attain the knowledge. Read the books, listen to the podcasts, talk to other hosts in your market, that are doing it. Get, of course, involved in the short-term rental, association. Like here in San Antonio, we have a great one. The Facebook groups are a great wealth of knowledge. There's a lot of people on there doing a lot of great things and a lot of questions that have already been answered. So you don't necessarily have to feel like you're recreating the wheel. There's always going to be someone that's experienced the same problem as you, and putting your problem out there is only going to help other people too, because they're going to be able to find your answer. So, much like me, you read these books and the podcasts so you can maybe take some steps forward faster than just having to constantly do step by step by step. You can get further faster, basically. What do you think?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, you hit it right on the head. Education is key. You don't want to get so bogged down in trying to learn that you never do, but you don't want to jump in the deep end without any of the information. So yeah, I think joining Strasser, which is the Short Term Rental Association of San Antonio. I know that's a long title, but joining the association, getting the education there, joining the Airbnb host community, which you're already there because you wouldn't be hearing from us, but asking questions, reading other people's questions and the answers that they receive, the information kind of can help you create a blueprint where you don't have to learn everything from your own experience. You kind of learning some of it from seeing other people's experiences. So I think you hit the nail right on the head. I don't have too much more to add to that. So I
Very good.
think that really captivates, captures, can get the word out, captures the essence of what it takes to become a co-host, whether you have zero properties now and you are ready to jump in. Maybe you're starting with doing one or two tasks and now you're wanting to take on like a full service operation. Maybe you're already full service and now you're ready to grow to numbers above five and you're wondering what pivots you need to make to support the infrastructure. So thank you everyone for joining. We're going to start to kind of wrap it up here and keep your time in mind. Jeremy, thank you so much for coming on, spending some time with us today. If anyone's out there, maybe you're a homeowner and you're listening and you're like, you know what, I could do this, but I would rather just hire someone to do this. Well, you're talking to two co-hosts, apparently the two best ones in San
Yes.
Antonio. So
Yep.
so if you wanted to connect one on one with either one of us, Jeremy, please tell everyone how they could connect with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can see my Instagram handle there, 5 star VHR. You can always email me, Jeremy at 5starvacationhomerentals.com. Very quick to respond there. You can find me in the Airbnb San Antonio Facebook group. I'm usually at a lot of the meetups for Strasa. So pretty easy to get a hold of if you have any questions. Happy to jump on a call, shoot a quick Loom to answer any questions for you. But to your point, if there are any homeowners interested in someone to do it for them, which I think a lot of people should, especially in this condensed market as things are
Yes.
turning a little bit south sometimes. We've been fortunate still to have a very small year over year decline in revenue compared to the broader market. Um, but we focus predominantly on larger homes with experiential amenities, pools, hot tubs, the resort style backyards, um, and less on the smaller homes. So we're looking for larger homes, 4 bedrooms, investors that are interested in making it a true short-term rental vacation home rather than just a nice home that's comfortable. We're looking for that investor that wants to invest in high-end amenities, in design, furnishing, things of that nature. So that's what we aim to help. We're at a 4.95 across all of our 65 listings. So even at scale, we're still doing a great job. A little pat on our back that, we very much so are focused on, the listing and the guest, having a great experience. And a lot of times when people get to scale, if they don't have those systems and they don't have the help, that's when their review scores drop. So, even at scale, we're still doing a good job. So, if we can help you at all, feel free to reach out. We can get free revenue projection for you.
Awesome, awesome, and very similar. My handle's right there with my name, the company Hosted Havens. You'll see both of us in the Facebook group. We're both very active, so feel free to ping me. You can go to my website, which is hostedhavens.co. Um, Reach me anywhere you see me. You'll see us in many, many places. We're both at events. We're both in the community. I would say for as far as who we handle, we do more of the midterm bookings. I mean, we would definitely do short term as well, but we do a lot of work travel groups and business corporate clients. And so a lot of times our houses are not like mini resorts, which are beautiful. I've seen your houses and I love them. We normally have houses that are a little bit more humble, something that can truly be a home for an insurance client who needs somewhere to stay for 3 months while their house is being repaired. So if you have something like that, we do prefer a little bit on the larger side, 3 bedroom, but that doesn't mean that we refuse anything that's lower. So reach out to both of us. I would say whether you're a homeowner or interested in co-hosting, I'm pretty sure you have some questions. So please make sure you add those questions to the comments. Both Jeremy and I, we will be circling back around to answer those. We'll also maybe highlight some of the questions in the host community. So if maybe someone isn't here and isn't seeing this video, they can still benefit from your questions and the answers that come. And also, we want to open it up to the other hosts to be able to answer your questions because there's a wealth of information in the community. So, I don't think I have anything else. You have any final words, Jeremy, or we're going to wrap it up?
No, I think we've said a lot, and I'm sure
Yes.
it's gonna come. The good questions are gonna be coming hot and heavy. So happy to answer all those questions for people because just like I said before, like you can ride the coattails of people that have come before you and learn a lot and get further and not have to make all those mistakes. If we can help anybody become a success like us, that that means the world because there's plenty of business to go around. I know we both, we don't view each other as competition. We have an abundance mindset. There's plenty of business. And I'm sure if you looked at how many listings there are in San Antonio, you know there's a lot
Yeah.
of business out there. So we're just here to be a resource and to help people, become, great co-hosts as well. So yeah, thanks for inviting me to do this. This was fun.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you all for attending. We'll see you in the host community. Until then, happy hosting.